So, Poekmon Scarlet and Violet have released. We have seen open world or open areas in Pokemon games, with Pokemon Sword and Shield having wild areas, and Pokemon Legends Arceus having many open-ended areas for you to explore, but this game is the first fully open world game that Game Freak has made. The question is, now, is it good? Is it fun? Is it the open world Pokemon experience of our dreams? Or our nightmares? So, hello guys, gals and gamers, and welcome back to another discussion video, whatever. This time, I have taken my time really playing through Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, way too much actually, and I decided that I want to do an open world analysis on this game. And if you are new to this channel or you have not tuned into my open world analysis videos before, I usually do this by looking at three main aspects that, in my opinion, make a great open world. Now, these aspects are: number one is the purpose. Why do you have an open world in your game to begin with? Why? What is the purpose? Not all games have an open world. It would be kind of weird to have Tetris 99 with an open world, right? So what makes you think an open world would be a good setting for this game? There can be plenty of reasons for you to want an open world. Maybe you want like a big battlefield where you can battle everyone you see. Or maybe you want to focus on freedom or exploration. Or maybe there's something else going on. Maybe it's just marketing is modern, blah blah blah, boring. Or maybe you just want to make this world feel more alive for some reason. That is also a good reason. But I also want to focus on like what other mechanics kind of enhance this purpose that you have given the open world. Then we also have a design. So how does the world look? How does it function? How is it built? What's in there? What makes it interesting or what makes it boring? And then finally, we have traversal. So how do you go around this open world? Do you just walk everywhere? I hope not. Just walking would be boring. How do you get from point A to point B? Is it fun to walk around or move around in this open world? How do you navigate? Is there like a navigation system? What happens? How can you find information? Like, I need to craft the magical sword of MacGuffin, and I need red wool to do it. How can I find this red wool? Please tell me, game. I just don't want to look it up online. So yeah, those are the main three aspects that I want to cover in this video. And it's good to remember in this beginning section that a lot of these key aspects, they do overlap quite a bit actually. But I will just try to keep it general and talk about things more better in the sections that they fill under blah blah blah. You probably hopefully understand. Anyways, purpose. Let's start with purpose. So I think with this game, and it is quite obvious, is one of the purposes that Game Freak made an open world is that they want to give freedom to the players. We have known for quite a while that Game Freak is a bit jealous of Breath of the Wild, ever since like interviews dating back to like 2016, where the Breath of the Wild everything was revealed in a grand trailer. We have interviews of Game Freak staff saying, yeah, we were shocked at how well received those trailers were, and they saw the reactions on Twitter, social media. People were praising, oh my god, this is the game we have always wanted, this looks so cool, and Game Freak kind of like wanting to be like, yeah, we want to do that as well. Definitely, we want to do that as well. And I think the game Scarlet and Violet does this fairly well. It does it fairly well. It's not perfectly, but does it fairly well. And one of the things that really supports this idea of freedom is the story. The story of the game is basically you're a new student arriving in a new region, attending a new school for some reason, and this school has this treasure hunt program. And this program is all about, hey, go out for a year and do whatever. Sounds a bit weird for a school program. As long as you get to class by next year having found something you kind of like, it's okay, and then you can go to classes more. I don't know. It's a weird school. I don't really understand the school, but I kind of want to go there and study if I can just relax and do nothing the whole time. Yeah, as a plot point, I think it does work okay for this game, and it's fun. And in the school, you meet some friends. These friends, when your treasure hunt program starts, they give you all sorts of like recommendations on what you should do. And these are all fairly normal recommendations, like becoming the Pokemon Master and defeating all of the gyms, finding cooking ingredients for some dweeb, and then of course taking down the evil school gang. So, all completely equal goals for you to have. And of course, this is where things kind of start falling down, because while you're given loads of tasks at first, maybe a bit too much, having 18 tasks and having the people say like, yeah, you have to do all of them, and that being basically the whole game, first of all, sets you up nicely for goals. You get a lot of goals to do, but the thing is, while you technically can do all of these in any order that you like, the game still kind of forces you down a specific path, because all of these are battles that you have to have specific level for. All of the gym leaders, all of the Titan Pokemon, all of the evil team leaders, they all have a set team, and that includes the level. As an example, I could say like, okay, say you pick Fuecoco, the fire starter, for your first Pokemon. Then you're given all of the tasks, and you think, I want to explore this world a bit. So maybe I would go to the farthest place in this region where the ice gym is. Ice gym sounds very easy. Fire is super effective against ice. I want to go there. It could be a easy beginning for me. But then you go there and are met with level 60 Pokemon, and your Fuecoco is like level 12. There's no way you can beat it. So then the game forces you, okay, go back and do the bug gym first. And this also applies in reverse. If you happen to beat the ice gym somehow, I don't know how, but you just beat it somehow, pure luck, and go back to the bug gym, they are back to level 10s. It's not a good thing. I wish there was some dynamic level scaling involved, so the player could really do all of this in any order that they like. Another thing that is kind of bad about this is that I don't remember the game telling me in what order should I go do these things. Because, well, of course it shouldn't if it was all free, but these characters, these battles I had to do, they have a set level. I don't know their level at any point until the battle starts, so I couldn't know that it was a level 60 battle I was going to go up against. I had no idea. I thought it was just going to be a battle. I don't know, like, after beating the electric gym, which one should I go next that has the lowest level. I don't know that. The game doesn't give you that information. At least I couldn't find it. If it does, then it might give you that information, but it's just hidden. So that is not good for the theme of freedom that you want to give this open world. Another thing that doesn't really support this purpose of freedom is unlocking traversal abilities. So moving around with your right Pokemon in the beginning is very dull. You can't do anything fun. You can only do like short hopping, you can't go fast, you can't climb anywhere, you can't swim, you can't glide around. All of these, again, are locked behind story progression. I think it is the Titan Pokemon storyline that you get all of these abilities from. And it's just annoying. The game says you can go anywhere, do anything you want in any order that you like, which is not true. And especially because you can't get into some areas as easily as you could if the game just gave you all of these traversal abilities in the beginning. And most of the time, when you get them, it just makes traversal easier. If the player just had all of these from the beginning, it would just make things a lot less frustrating and much more like cooler from the start to go out and explore this world. But yeah, I think there is still another purpose that Game Freak wanted to invoke with this game and the open world, and that is to make the Pokemon world feel more real and lived in, and also a bit more modern as just a video game. And yeah, one of the weird things that Pokemon has done previously is random encounters. Those are no more. Pokemon live in the overworld. There are no more small, narrow routes that have nothing in them and towns with 2 buildings in there. It's all a connected world that feels more alive. And that is good, because one of the biggest selling points for just the Pokemon franchise is the world of Pokemon. It is a world with all of these fantastical creatures. So of course you want to go explore that world and see it fully realized in HD, and go and see what's everywhere, what kind of cool monsters and creatures can you find in there. That is the appeal of Pokemon. So I think Pokemon is just, it's made for open world gameplay, and that is just fantastic. And this game, Poekmon Scarlet and Violet, is another step in the right direction for that. But it is still a long ways from it feeling completely natural, or even natural to the point that something like new Pokemon Snap feels like. The environments in that game look lovely, and the Pokemon really look they are part of that environment. That is not the case here yet, but it is a good step towards that. There are plenty of cool things I like in this world, that Pokemon are in the overworld, and when they appear in groups of similar species, and maybe the leader is like an evolved form of that Pokemon. That is really nice. There are plenty of cool like animations they have added. My favorite is the sleeping one, and it's really cute to find a Pokemon that is sleeping under a tree, which is really nice attention to detail. The Pokemon are like no longer tied to specific patches of grass like they were in Sword and Shield. They're just wandering around the general area. It just feels much more lived in, and like these creatures are more like actual animals. And one thing that kind of breaks this immersion is just the performance issues. That is really bad, especially when you like see a Pokemon in the distance moving at 4 frames per second. That takes you out of the immersion. But overall, I think really well made that these Pokemon feel again a bit more natural, just not there yet. And that is because this is an open world setting, and those are really hard to make, especially with the schedule that Game Freak has. If they had more schedule, of course, it would be easier. And it's good to remember that new Pokemon Snap is like a theme park ride more than an open world. So it is, of course, easier to make those Pokemon feel more lived in. But yes. Now, moving on to the design portion of this video. And the first thing here is, of course, the word design. And I think the word in general, I think it is very well done. It is very cool, but it's not the best. I really enjoyed how some of the landscape, how it looks. There's plenty of cool areas that look cool, and there's a good variety of biomes. I enjoy how the landscape was shaped as well. Going down something like an icy mountain felt satisfying, and I specifically remember this part, like near the Psychic Gym, there were these mountains that were a bit spirally. It was really fun going up those. So I think the world, the terrain is well done. And there are, of course, plenty of hidden caves and other kinds of secrets that it's a place where it is a bit hard to get, but once you get there, you're usually pretty well rewarded by finding a new Pokemon, a Terra Pokemon, or something really strong, or maybe a TM or an something else, some else really good item. And one clever idea about the whole design of this world is that it is shaped like a donut. So if you start from the left, you know that you have to go clockwise for progression. If you start from the right, you need to go counterclockwise for progression. And if you go a little bit of both, you know that you will meet at the top to, finalize your adventure. It's really well done, I think. And you always know in which general direction is progress. That is very nice. But some of the early areas I felt a bit lost in because visually it does look the same. If you just look around, you might not know where you came from. And that is where objects of interest come in. Objects of interest are like these unique locations in your open world that kind of invoke the player to go into them. This can be like towers or shrines in Breath of the Wild or other just like unique locations. And they're also like good for navigations. Like, hey, I saw that tower earlier. I think I'm going the wrong way now. So I'm gonna just, turn back and go the other way. Okay, thank you, game, for letting me know where I was. They're really good and done basically perfectly in Breath of the Wild. There only seems to be a few of these in Poekmon Scarlet and Violet, and these are like the watchtowers. But another thing about these objects of interest is that they need to be rewarding. The player needs to feel rewarded for going to these objects of interest and seeing what's in there. And that's kind of the bad thing about these watchtowers in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, is that they are not rewarding enough. The rewards you get for climbing them are less TMs, which can be good or bad. You can get something like Aerial Ace, but you can also get like Pound, which sucks. It's boring, bad. You also get Gimmighoul coins, which are required to evolve Gimmighoul into its evolution. I don't remember the name, which is necessary if you want to complete the Pokédex or if you just happen to have a Gimmighoul on your team, but I don't think that is something most people do, and it's not something that really makes you want to go to these towers. And the final thing that these towers reward you with is a fast travel point, which is really important, but the game doesn't tell you specifically that, hey, congratulations, you found this area, it's a fast travel point now. So if you don't notice that, you just think these rewards are really bad. I have no need to seek out these towers and climb on top of them, even though you should. So they're not very well done. But overall, I do think this world is designed well, and it is no surprise because according to the credits, one of the lead map designers was a developer from Monolith Soft, the makers of Xenoblade Chronicles, and also helping Nintendo with plenty of games, including Breath of the Wild. So you can definitely see the influence there in how the world was really made. Then, moving on to the visuals, they are not really the strongest suit of Game Freak. Ever since they started making 3D games, they have struggled a bit with the visuals of Pokemon games, and yeah, it's definitely a problem here too. I think the game is just generally okay looking, but there are times where the game just looks downright bad. It looks embarrassing. And some of these are like these Team Star flags that you see somewhere in the overworld. They just look very pixelated and low quality, and it's just embarrassing. And I think the lighting is a little bit funky sometimes too. I'm not a lighting expert. I have no idea how to give recommendations on how to fix it, but it does look a bit distracting sometimes and a bit weird. But yeah, I don't know much about graphics myself on how to improve them, and I know also that this is not something that many casual Pokemon enjoyers really take notice of. They just play the game because it's fun. There are also, in this open world, there are plenty of a good variety of things to find. There are items, there are TMs, there are crafting materials, Terra battles, trainers, Gimmighoul coins, and mass outbreaks even. And what makes this exceptionally good is that all of these, except trainer battles I think, respawn and change locations daily. So every day you open up the game, there are new things for you to find. And I was really surprised on how good these items were. Straight from the beginning, the first area I got to explore, I found a rare candy and a revive. Really good. I was surprised, okay, this is good. And when your rewards are good, you want to keep exploring. And they are good items that you use many times, as many as you can get. You use all of them. So that is really good. One thing that there is also to collect are these mysterious seals or stakes that are somewhere in the open world. And these are, if you collect all of them, you can catch some legendary Pokemon. But unfortunately, what is not so great about this is that the game just doesn't tell you how many of them you have collected, and you can't check it anywhere. So that is a bit, I hope, wish there was like a pop-up like, hey, congratulations, you have collected 7 out of 8 green seals. And also the purpose was not clear to me when I was playing the game. What are these for? What do I get from collecting all of these? So it is a bit, there should be more information involved in here, I feel like. Also, crafting materials don't feel important either, as they did in Pokemon Legends Arceus, which also had crafting, because the crafting is here only for TMs. And in Pokemon Legends Arceus, it was for many things, like potions and Pokeballs and everything, basically everything. And even in Legends Arceus, like one of the most powerful Pokeballs was crafting only, so you constantly needed more of those materials, and that created a good gameplay loop and a good economy loop in that game as well. And many of the materials are just gotten from battling different Pokemon, which as an idea, I think it is good, but the Pokemon themselves can be a bit hard to find because of the Pokedex, but I will talk about that more in the navigation section. There are, of course, many things to discover, but the main thing that you're supposed to discover is the Pokemon. And using Pokemon as kind of a bait for exploration, I think it is fantastic. Like I said, the Pokemon and the Pokemon world is a fantasy, and that is the biggest selling point in Pokemon. And I was pleasantly surprised with how these games deal with the Pokemon that you can find. There was a really good variety, I feel like. It was a good mix of new and old, different types, even like exciting types like Fairy and Dragon, you could find fairly early on, which was really good. And this is just reminds me of the day of Sinnoh original Diamond and Pearl, where every route had a Geodude and you could only catch one fire type in this game, which, oh, that was embarrassing. I'm glad things are better now. The new thing here being that you can find are Terra Pokemon, which relate to the battle gimmick of this game, which is terrestrialization. Every Pokemon has like a hidden third type that they can unlock, and that can be everything. It can be like a dragon type Eevee, it can be a water type Pidgey, or whatever you can imagine. And you can find some of these Terra Pokemon roaming around the world in specific locations. I kind of wish every Pokemon could be a Terra Pokemon, just like how Alpha Pokemon work in Pokemon Legends Arceus, but at the same time, these Terra Pokemon can be a really good reward for exploration, and they are just fun to go see what they are. And another cool thing about these is that they kind of act as a boss battle. So you have to damage it before catching, and it's just overall a neat idea, and I like that they did this. One problem with the Pokemon in this game, however, is just the overall visibility. Some of the Pokemon you just can't see when you're running around, and that is a big problem. Like many times, especially in the early game when you see smaller Pokemon more often, I completely missed out on some of the new cool Pokemon that I could catch. New Pokemon like the bug type Nimble or whatever it is called, it is so hard to see. And I think this is an accessibility issue, and they should make all of the Pokemon a bit more visible somehow. And this is made even worse by shiny Pokemon, which are rare color variations of normal Pokemon. And these are very rare, like 1 in 4,000 rare. And in previous games, like Pokemon Let's Go or Pokemon Legends Arceus, these Pokemon sparkled in the overworld and made a noise to alert that, hey, you are around a shiny Pokemon. That is no longer the case in Poekmon Scarlet and Violet, and that is really bad because a lot of people want these shiny Pokemon. And the game is just, you have to pay attention at all times if you want to catch these. And for me, I was quite anxious first playing through the game. Just, I didn't know what shiny colors some Pokemon had, so I was just checking many different Pokemon just so I wouldn't miss a shiny Pokemon. And the first shiny I got was Gothorita, a Pokemon that is otherwise the same but has brown eyes. So that was a bit of a yikes moment, and there definitely should be like a visual and audio cue to alert the player. And also, the Pokemon just in general have a habit of spawning in places that they shouldn't, like inside wall. There's also some missing stuff when it comes to world design, and the main thing here that I wish the game had was side quests. That is a bad thing to miss out on. Side quests are really important for open world games because after you've done the main story, what else is there to do? There's a post game, of course you do that, blah blah blah, but you might want to keep on playing. And for casual players, they might not be interested in like self-made goals like shiny hunting or building a competitive team. And a Pokemon is built to be a game that does not encourage replaying it. You want to keep the same save file. That's why we've never had multiple save files in Pokemon. So they would really benefit from having a side quest system like they have done in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon and Pokemon Legends Arceus, which had a brilliant side quest log even. That was really great, but for some reason, not in this game. I don't get it. So let's get on to the third and final aspect that we are going to cover today, Traversal. Of course, you move with the left stick, and if you tilt it a bit, you go faster. If you tilt it slightly, you go slower, and that is great. Otherwise, it's just basically, your traditional 3D movement. And if you, of course, move the right stick, then you move the camera around. Other features that are with the movement are, of course, crouching and throwing your Pokemon out of field, which both of them return from Pokemon Legends Arceus, though do serve less significance in this game. However, one thing that is missing, a few things actually, missing from Pokemon Legends Arceus, one of them is leaping, though as Pokemon do not damage you in this game, there is not so much of a necessity to have leaping back, but still at some points I kind of do miss it. And a bigger thing that is missing from this game that was in Pokemon Legends Arceus is throwing Pokeballs at Pokemon to catch them directly without having to initiate a battle, or just throwing other items to slow them down or weaken them or do some other shenanigans. That is completely missing. And while unfortunate, I believe they did this decision because they want to focus a bit more on the battling aspect of Pokemon again. In Pokemon Legends Arceus itself, there basically were not that many like actual battles that you had to go through. So I think Game Freak wants to remind you that like, hey, these exist again. And especially when competitive Pokemon is a big deal for many people, of course you want to get the player to know the battles a bit better in this game than in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Also, unlike in Pokemon Legends Arceus, there is no fall damage in this game at all, which I think is cool. It's neat. And a neat little thing about falling down, if you fall down without riding your right Pokemon, so you're just walking around and you fall down a cliff or something, you slide down a mountain, the game will ask you, hey, you fell down, do you want to go back up? It's a really great feature, it's a really good quality of life addition, and I'm glad they added it. It's a really good thing, and I hope more and more open world games would do this. It's really great. I really appreciated that there. So yeah, it's neat. But speaking of your ride Pokemon, in this game you can ride Koraidon, or Miraidon, depending on the version you get. And I like only having one Pokemon that you can ride. We have had ride Pokemon in previous games, I think starting from, well, Pokemon X and Y kind of had it, and Pokemon Sun and Moon kind of made it mandatory in some places a bit more, so you could ride them at all times. And then really, I think in Pokemon Legends Arceus, they really made ride Pokemon very useful for Traversal. And in that game, it was a bit annoying to have like a list of ride Pokemon. Because if I wanted to go from Pokemon like Sneasler straight to Ursaluna, I couldn't. I would have to scroll through all of the available ride Pokemon that I have, and then probably miss it a few times, and then go to Ursaluna that I wanted to go to. So it was really annoying for me. If I wanted to switch Pokemon quickly, I couldn't at all chances that I had. So it's nice to just have one right Pokemon. But yes, as I said earlier, I think, when talking about freedom, the right Pokemon here allows the player to move faster and then even faster once you unlock that ability, jump, a short hop, and a longer hop again once you unlock that one. Then swim in any sort of water, gliding around, and climbing. The basic movement again for the ride Pokemon is fine. I like it. It goes a lot faster. One thing I really like, again, with the ride Pokemon movement, is that I remember in Pokemon Sword and Shield with the bike, which was kind of the replacement for ride Pokemon in that game, whenever you turned around, like a 180 degrees turn, you would do this like long circle, long curve before actually going in the other direction. And if you had to turn a lot, that really messed with how the game controlled. And that was annoying. But in this game, you do like this cool motorcycle slide and then just go back in that direction. So it's really much more simple, and I really didn't like how they did it in Sword and Shield. Though, let's say here, because of that thing, because of that weird movement quirk, I did get a random shiny once, so that's cool. But again, I would have rather not had that feature in the first place. Jumping has two different settings, like I said, and the better one really is just so much better. Like the higher jump is just like so much better than the short hop. I never used the short hop again when I like unlocked the higher jump because there's just no use for it. It's just much better. So I don't kind of understand like why couldn't have been like a permanent upgrade for it. So every time you jump higher now instead of having to press the B button longer to do the higher jump. So it was a bit weird, but you know, little details. Gliding, I feel like, is a bit weird as well because it doesn't glide normally like you're used to gliding in, say, Breath of the Wild. Because in Breath of the Wild, the gliding just goes like, well, imagine this is you gliding. It just goes like this. It just goes at a straight, like an angle, just goes downwards slightly. But in Poekmon Scarlet and Violet, after some point, it just starts going down really fast. And that is something I don't understand why that happens. It's a really weird decision. And I would have just wanted it to be like a regular glide. And I don't know why. It looks a bit silly too when you're suddenly like, was I hit or something? Why is the plane suddenly going down? It's a weird thing. Climbing, I think, is almost perfect. No stamina here, no stamina needed. The only flaw I had it with it was just like sometimes when the curve was a bit weird, Coridon just started like, or Miraidon, I don't remember which one is which. It just started like sliding down. It didn't stick properly, but do it again and it's probably fine. So wasn't a big deal. Now for navigation, and the biggest thing in navigation in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, which did not exist in Pokémon Legends Arceus, and I pointed that out back when analyzing that game, and I'm so glad it is here, is that we finally have a minimap. And minimaps are very, very useful for like any sort of like open environments, because it's a big environment. You need to be able to navigate easily where you are, and having a small portion of the map always visible, it's very, very beneficial. It is very beneficial for the player. And I think the minimap is okay here. The area you can see is good size. The minimap shows the player like nearby environments, and if there are like any terror raids nearby. It doesn't show many things, which I would like there to be a bit more variety. And no possibility on like filtering out layers. For example, if you're like in an underground cavern, you can't see the layout of that cavern, unfortunately. And for me, it also rotates a bit too much for my liking, but at least in the minimap, there is like colored directions, so which way is north, you always kind of have that in mind. And the most annoying part of that, the rotating, is otherwise, I think, fine. But when you open up the big map, the whole region's map, where you can look at more details, it has rotated. And I would have liked personally that the whole map would not rotate. So if you open up the map by pressing Y at any time you're playing it, it would just show you the right, like the correct orientation of it all. I think that would just be much clearer. You can, I think, press the right stick down, so it's goes back to the original intended rotation. But then like 2 seconds back into gameplay, it's all wonky again. So I don't like that so much. But yeah, the big map is basically a big map. So you can just see better where you are, what is around you. And you can also use it to access fast travel, which is great. There are loads of fast travel points. And with the watchtowers, you can, of course, unlock more, which is lovely. And there is a few different options to view the map. Then that is, zooming in and out. I think there are 4 different settings for zooming. And when zoomed all the way out, I think it shows like the entire region and then your story progress, it's cool, but it is a bit useless and it is a bit too much for when you have completed the game. You don't need that story progress anymore that much. So it is weird to still have it there. Could display some other information after you've beaten the game. I feel like if you played 120 hours of the game, you don't need to see progress that you made 100 hours ago. It's like you don't care anymore. You don't care at that point. So yeah. And if you zoom all the way in, you get to see stuff a bit more clearly, like the information about towns that you might be visiting and all of the shops that are available there. And this is great, but I feel like this information was given to you in a better way in Pokémon Sword and Shield, where you hovered over a town and it shows like services and important people that live in there, which was really great. But here you have to... There is some flavor text for towns telling like what the town is, but for like all of the services, you need to go to each shop individually and see what they are about. There are small icons, so you kind of know, like, okay, this is a clothing store, but I want to buy a new hat. And I want to know if this is a hat store or a bag store or a jacket store. Which one is it? So I would prefer to have that information like all in one place instead of like having to look at each shop separately. This also goes for like ingredients. If you need a specific type of ingredients to make sandwiches, then you need to look at all ingredient shops separately, which is a bit annoying, but it's not a big deal, just like these little nitpicks that I noticed. And what is really a shame about the map in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet is that while you are able to put like your next destination in the map, like you can select any part of the map as your next destination, and when you get there, it disappears. it disappears, like the location marker disappears, which is great. So it doesn't like leave you haunting on the map forever when you once wanted to go to some place. It's nice, and the location marker shows also on your minimap, which is cool. But there are no other forms of markers that you can place on the map, which is a big shame. This was a feature in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I do miss that, because you need to place information on the map. Let's say you see a Terra Pokemon, and you really like this Pokemon, say it's Azumarill or Sylveon, and you just adore that Pokemon. But then you battle it, and then you realize, I can't really use this Terra typing for any advantage myself. So maybe I should come back some other day and rebattle and see if the Terra type has changed to something else. But you can't like put that location anywhere. The information, you can't have a marker to put that location there, so you can come back to it later. And it's really a shame, and those kind of markers is something I really like in open world games, so I can put my own notes in the game and it saves it, so I can come back to a place I really liked, or there was something cool that I can't do yet, so I can come back to it later. It's really useful, and unfortunately you can't do that. Another feature, if you just get lost in the map while looking around, you can just press plus to jump back to your position and where the player is. So that is useful, nothing to say about it there. But moving on to another bigger thing that you can see on the map is, hey, you open the big map and there's Pokemon around you. That's cool, you can see Pokemon on the map. But this feature, while kind of useful, how the information is displayed to you is very, very misleading. Just look at this picture that I'm putting on screen. You see Pokemon around you. What do you think it means? What do you honestly think it means? You see, okay, Pokemon around you. There is a Slakoth in the right corner. I'm not sure if there's Slakoth in the picture, but there is a Pokemon in the right corner or wherever. Put your mind on one Pokemon. And you go there on that location on the map precisely. But the Pokemon is not there. The Pokemon is nowhere to be seen around there. And that is because what the map actually shows to you are not Pokemon that are appearing on the map. It is showing Pokemon that can appear on the map. It is showing Pokemon that are known to appear in that area. Which itself, it is useful information. You want to know, like, what Pokemon can appear here. So you can prepare for that. But it's not showing the exact Pokemon that are on those places at this moment, which is very misleading. It is very, very misleading. And I thought, that explains so much when I figured that out. And it was just, it is one of those like design decisions that really frustrate me, because the player wants to know what Pokemon are around you, or if there are Pokemon around you. That is very useful if you're like trying to complete Pokedex, trying to shiny hunt, or for some reason just trying to hunt down a specific Pokemon. You want to know if there are many Pokemon around you, and if so, which ones they are. And this is just so weirdly done. I can't understand why they did it that way. I think a better way would have been to have Pokemon appear on your map as like something basic, like red dots. Red dots, so you can see, okay, there are a couple of creatures nearby me. That would have also solved like the visibility issue that I talked about earlier. So that would have been great. And for the Pokemon that appear on this area, that could be something you can unlock with the Pokedex. That would have been really cool as an unlock. But no, the way the current system is made, it's just like very confusing. I don't like it. And also, what makes it worse that the misleading Pokemon also stay on the minimap when you close the big map. So, I don't like it. And all of this talk about navigation, it's cool, but There is one place in the entire game where none of this applies. None whatsoever. None of the things I said, like a minimap or even a map or fast travel points, none of them matter. And this area is, of course, the secret final area of the game, Area Zero. And I get it. I get it from a story perspective why you don't show the map the first time you're there. Because it's like a secret hidden area that you didn't know existed, and it's also wonderful and you thought it was forbidden, and it's such a cool story moment. I get it. But after you're beating like the story section there, you should get the map there. You should. Because why shouldn't you? And it just causes a lot of weird problems. I know that the area is very like vertical, so it has a lot of layers. It's a cavern. It's a crater. It's a crater. Yeah. So it might be a bit hard to navigate there sometimes. Yes, I do get it. But still, maps do help. Yes, maps are helpful for navigation. Surprise. So I don't get it really. And what is the most infuriating thing about not having a map there are the fast travel points. You can fast travel in Area Zero, but you can do this only by going to a research station and selecting another research station you want to go to. Going to Area Zero in the first place, after you've beaten the game, you first need to fast travel to the Zero Gate, which leads you to Area Zero. And from the Zero Gate, you need to go inside, go to the teleporter, select the research station that you want to go to, and then it teleports you there, and then you exit and realize that you were in the wrong place because it was in Research Station 2 that you wanted to be, not Research Station 3. Fun, because you couldn't see the map on where you were going. Lovely. So that is weird. Every time you need to fast travel, you need to first find a research station, use that, and go there. It's just too many extra steps for me. That makes it a bit too infuriating to explore that area. So that is weird. And the funniest thing, you can't go like directly to Area Zero, but you can fast travel away from there to any place, which is just like, so you can fast travel away from there, but not into there. So I don't get it. It's just a weird decision. Okay, moving from navigation to one of the final topics here, and that is the camera. And I think the camera, like I told you, you can use the R stick to move it around, and I think the field of vision, that all of the things that you see nearby, it's fine. It is fine, but unfortunately you can't move like zoom it in or zoom it out freely. There are only two set modes. I usually use the zoomed out version because you can just see a lot more, and sometimes the zoomed in setting is a bit too close, especially in like closed off areas like caves or caverns. I feel like the zoomed in version of the camera, the player character and your right Pokemon, it just takes way too much space. There is an opportunity to zoom in further, but then the player is looking a lot to their right for some reason. While you can see better to the right, you can't see at all to the left. So in some areas that is just not useful at all, and it's just a very weird thing to do. If you wanted to zoom in like even further, I would have just gone to first person mode at that point. That would have been cool to see Pokemon in first person. What is that like? Also, I think it should be noted about the camera that sometimes it can go out of bounds and show the player something they should not have seen, but that doesn't happen that often, and when it does, it's only like for a brief, like a second or something, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just like a bit immersion breaking, so that is unfortunate. Okay, finally getting to the conclusion of this whole video. I think it's gonna be a long one. So I really enjoyed my time with the game most of all, and the open world was great. Definitely an improvement on many many cases when comparing it to the wild areas of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and even to Pokemon Legends Arceus. There are definite improvements there. But yeah, it's still not perfect. If you want a good, fun Pokemon open world adventure experience, then this game definitely does give you that. But looking at all of the stuff that is just missing, or stuff that is not friendly to the players, or stuff that was done better in previous games, it just kind of makes me wish that this game had not come out this year, honestly. This game has good... It's a good game. This is a very good game, but it has the potential to be excellent, top of the line. But it doesn't. And I don't think it will ever be excellent, completely excellent. And I think that issue is because of Game Freak. I don't think it is a skill issue here. It is more of a time and scheduling issue here, and with how the whole franchise operates. I have a video on that if you are getting bored of me talking and want to watch something else that I've done. But it is definitely like a time issue. There is care that is put into these games, and you can definitely see it from a design point and from a Pokemon fan point. You can see that care. But because of like time restrictions, even like basic features that you'd think would be there, like placing markers on a map or side quests, you think would be there without a doubt, but they are left out because they just didn't have time to implement them, or they just were not a priority for implementation. And it just makes me a bit sad. And the power of Pokemon as a series and the fantasy it creates is huge. This game is going to sell well. This might be one of the best-selling Pokemon games ever made. Don't think it will be the best-selling, but still really successful when compared to many other Pokemon games, even Legends Arceus. And it just makes me think, had this been any other game, any other series, say something like Dragon Quest, would I enjoy this game as much? Maybe still even a little. It would be fun to go through and then never think about again. But if the Pokemon weren't there, instead they were like just generic monsters, or just cool designed monsters like Dragon Quest has, but they would not be something to catch or befriend, they would just be enemies to battle. If this game didn't have the Pokemon element, would I be giving it such a high praise? And would there be something, honestly something, to keep me coming back here? I don't think so.